The fluorescent lights in the hospital corridor buzzed overhead as Simone Carter pressed her back against the cold wall, one hand cradling her 6-month pregnant belly, the other clutching the devastating test results. Stage 2 breast cancer. The words echoed in her mind like a death sentence, but not just for her, for the 2 babies growing inside her. Devon, she whispered into her phone, her voice cracking. I need you to come to the hospital. Please. The silence on the other end stretched forever before his familiar voice came through, distant and cold. Simone, I'm in a meeting. Whatever it is can wait. It can't wait. Tears burned her eyes as she looked down at the ultrasound photo tucked between the lab reports. 2 perfect little beings, completely dependent on her body that was now betraying them all. Devon, I have cancer. Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice held an edge she'd never heard before. What do you mean you have cancer? Breast cancer. The doctor says I need to start treatment immediately, but with the babies. Her voice broke completely. She couldn't finish the sentence. She couldn't say what they both knew, that treatment might save her life but cost their children theirs. Babies? Simone, what are you talking about? Her heart stopped. In all the chaos of the diagnosis, she'd forgotten. She hadn't told him yet. She'd planned to surprise him tonight with dinner and the ultrasound photos. Now everything was crashing down at once. Devon, I'm pregnant. With twins. The line went dead silent. Not even breathing. Devon? This can't be happening, he whispered. Not now. I just got the promotion. I'm finally making something of myself, and you're telling me that you're going to be a father? That we created 2 beautiful? That you're sick and pregnant and everything's falling apart? His voice exploded through the phone, causing an elderly woman in the hallway to look over with concern. Simone, I can't do this. I can't handle this right now. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the cold hospital floor, her free hand instinctively protecting her belly. What are you saying? I'm saying this is too much. The cancer, the babies, the medical bills, the stress. I didn't sign up for this. You didn't sign up for loving me? The words came out as barely a whisper. I didn't sign up for watching you die while raising babies I'm not ready for. The cruelty of it hit her like a physical blow. She doubled over, gasping. Devon, please. I need you. We need you. I'm sorry, Simone. I really am. But I can't be what you need right now. I can't be a father to sick babies or a caregiver to a dying girlfriend. I can't. The line went dead. Simone sat there on the hospital floor, holding her phone to her ear long after the dial tone started, her whole world collapsing around her. Nurses walked by, their shoes squeaking on the linoleum. Somewhere down the hall, a baby was crying. The irony wasn't lost on her. Dr. Ellis found her there 20 minutes later, still sitting against the wall with tears streaming down her face. Simone? Honey, what happened? The older black woman knelt beside her, her kind eyes filled with concern. He left, Simone whispered. I told him about the babies and the cancer and he just left. Dr. Ellis helped her to her feet, guiding her back toward the office. Who left, sweetheart? Devon, the father. My boyfriend of 3 years. He said he can't handle it. Can't handle me dying or raising sick babies. She laughed bitterly. He doesn't even know if they'll be sick. He just assumed. Oh, honey. Dr. Ellis wrapped an arm around her shoulders. I'm so sorry. But listen to me carefully, you are not dying. We caught this early, and we have excellent treatment options, even with the pregnancy. But the babies are strong. I've seen their heartbeats. We'll monitor them closely and adjust treatment accordingly. You can do this, Simone. With or without him. Simone touched her belly, feeling a small flutter that might have been one of the twins moving. I don't know how to do this alone. You're not alone. You have family, friends, a whole medical team behind you. And most importantly, you have those 2 little fighters inside you giving you every reason to fight back. As they walked back to the office to discuss treatment options, Simone felt something shift inside her chest. The devastation was still there, the heartbreak still fresh, but underneath it all, a small flame of determination began to burn. Devon might have abandoned them, but she wouldn't abandon her children. No matter what it took, she would survive this. They would survive this. She just had no idea how much strength that promise would require, or how it would change everything about who she thought she was. The next 3 months became a blur of doctor appointments, treatment schedules, and sleepless nights. Simone's mother, Ruby, had moved in immediately after hearing the news, her weathered hands never far from her daughter's growing belly or tear-stained cheeks. That boy was never good enough for you anyway, Ruby declared one morning as she helped Simone to the bathroom during a particularly rough bout of morning sickness combined with chemotherapy nausea. Good riddance. Mama, please. Simone gripped the doorframe, breathing deeply. I loved him. Love don't abandon you when you need it most, baby girl. That wasn't love. That was convenience. Ruby's voice was firm but gentle. Real love shows up. Real love fights with you, not runs from you. Dr. Ellis had been carefully monitoring the babies throughout Simone's modified treatment plan. They delayed the most aggressive chemotherapy until after delivery, focusing on treatments that were safer during pregnancy. It was a delicate balance between fighting the cancer and protecting the twins. They're growing beautifully, Dr. Ellis said during the 32-week appointment, pointing to the ultrasound screen. Baby A is about 4 pounds, baby B is 3 pounds 12 ounces. Strong heartbeats, good movement. Simone stared at the screen, watching her children move and stretch in their cramped quarters. Will they be okay? After everything they've been through with the treatments. From everything we can see, they're perfect. You've done an amazing job protecting them while taking care of yourself. Ruby squeezed Simone's hand. She's stronger than she knows. That strength was tested 2 weeks later when Simone went into premature labor at 34 weeks. Ruby drove through Atlanta traffic like a woman possessed, calling out encouragement while Simone breathed through contractions in the passenger seat. Almost there, baby. Just hold on. Those grandbabies of mine are ready to meet their mama. The delivery was intense but mercifully quick. Amara entered the world first, screaming her displeasure at being evicted early, followed 3 minutes later by Aiden, who seemed more interested in looking around than crying. They're beautiful, Dr. Ellis announced, placing both babies on Simone's chest for a brief moment before the NICU team took over. And breathing on their own. Simone had exactly 30 seconds to look into her children's faces before they were whisked away to the neonatal intensive care unit. 30 seconds that changed everything. In their tiny, perfect features, she saw her own determination reflected back. They had fought to survive inside her body during the worst of times. Now they would all fight together. The NICU became Simone's second home for the next 6 weeks. Every day she would sit between their incubators, one hand on each baby, reading to them, talking to them, singing the old spirituals her grandmother had sung to her. Hey my loves, she would whisper. Mama's here. Mama's always going to be here. Ruby would arrive each afternoon with homemade soup and fresh flowers, sitting with the babies while Simone went to her own treatment appointments. The nurses grew to love the Carter family, amazed by Simone's resilience and Ruby's endless supply of wisdom and comfort food. That girl's got more strength in her little finger than most people have in their whole body, she overheard Nurse Patricia tell another staff member. And those babies know it. You can see it in how they settle when she talks to them. Nadia, Simone's best friend from college, visited every other day, bringing homework from the online business classes Simone was taking and updates from the outside world. Girl, you're going to come out of this with 2 babies and a business degree, Nadia said one afternoon, watching Aiden wrap his tiny fist around Simone's finger. That's what I call making the best of a bad situation. I have to, Simone replied simply. They're depending on me to build something better than what I had before. The day the twins were finally discharged, Simone stood in the hospital parking lot holding 2 car seats, Ruby beside her with enough baby supplies to stock a small store. For the first time in months she felt genuinely happy. You ready for this, Mama? Ruby asked, watching Simone settle the car seats in the back of their borrowed minivan. Simone looked at her sleeping children, then at her mother's proud face, then out at the Atlanta skyline stretching before them. I'm ready for whatever comes next. She had no idea that whatever comes next would include building a business empire while juggling cancer treatments, late-night feedings, and the constant ache of doing it all without the man she'd thought would be by her side forever. But she was ready to try. 2 years had passed since Devon walked out of their lives. Simone's cancer was in remission, the twins were thriving toddlers, and she had just received her business degree online while working nights at a hotel restaurant. The tiny apartment she shared with her mother and the children was cramped but filled with love and the constant sounds of busy family life. Mama, look. Amara held up a wooden spoon, banging it against a pot lid with enthusiastic determination. I see you, baby girl. You're making music. Simone laughed as she stirred the large pot of jambalaya on the stove. She'd been experimenting with catering jobs on weekends, word spreading through their church community about her incredible cooking. Aiden toddled over, clutching his favorite stuffed elephant, and wrapped his arms around Simone's leg. Mama, hungry. Almost ready, sweet boy. She bent to kiss the top of his head, marveling as always at how different her twins were. Amara was bold and loud, never meeting a stranger, while Aiden was thoughtful and quiet, preferring to observe before diving in. Ruby emerged from the bedroom where she'd been folding laundry. "Simone, Mrs. Patterson from church called. She wants you to cater her daughter's graduation party for 50 people next month." 50 people? Simone's eyes widened. "Mama, I've never done anything that big." "Then it's time to start. You can't keep working for other people forever when you've got this gift." Ruby gestured toward the kitchen where 3 different pots were bubbling away. "These babies need to see their mama building something of her own." That weekend, Simone catered her first major event. She borrowed equipment from the church kitchen, enlisted Nadia as her assistant, and Ruby watched the twins while she worked. The graduation party was a huge success, with guests asking for her business cards before the evening was over. "Girl, you need to make this official," Nadia said as they cleaned up. "I'm talking business license, proper equipment, the whole thing." "With what money?" Simone laughed, but she was already calculating in her head. Between her hotel job and weekend catering, she might be able to save enough to start small. 6 months later, Simone's Soulful Catering was officially born. She started with a borrowed van, basic equipment, and a menu featuring the Southern comfort food recipes passed down through 3 generations of Carter women. Ruby's mac and cheese, her own grandmother's cornbread, and Simone's signature peach cobbler became the foundation of a growing business. The twins, now 3 years old, became her unofficial mascots. Amara would help by organizing napkins into elaborate patterns, while Aiden preferred to taste test everything within reach. "Mama, this one needs more sugar," Aiden declared solemnly, pointing to a perfectly seasoned pot of collard greens. "Does it now?" Simone grinned. "And how do you know that?" "Tastes like vegetables," he replied with such seriousness that both Simone and Ruby burst into laughter. Business grew steadily. Church events led to family reunions, which led to corporate functions. Simone's reputation spread throughout Atlanta's Black communities and beyond. She hired 2 part-time assistants, invested in better equipment, and moved the family to a small house with an actual dining room. But the real test came 3 years later when she was asked to cater a wedding for 200 people, the biggest event she'd ever attempted. The bride specifically requested her after tasting Simone's food at another event. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," Simone confided to Nadia the night before the wedding, checking her prep list for the 100th time. "Ready or not, you're doing it," Nadia replied firmly. "Remember where you started, girl. Remember sitting in that hospital thinking your world was over. Look where you are now." The wedding was perfect. Every dish was flawless, every guest satisfied, and the bride cried when she tasted the wedding cake, a 6-layer masterpiece that Simone had stayed up all night perfecting. Standing in the reception hall, watching people enjoy food she'd created with her own hands, Simone felt a satisfaction deeper than anything she'd experienced with Devon. This was hers. She'd built it from nothing, through heartbreak and illness and the constant challenge of single motherhood. "Mama's working," Amara announced to anyone who would listen, her small chest puffed with pride. "Yes, she is," Ruby agreed, watching her daughter direct her team with quiet confidence. "And she's just getting started." That night, as Simone tucked the twins into their beds in their own house, a house she'd bought with money she'd earned, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Devon's abandonment had devastated her, but it had also freed her to become someone she never knew she could be. Someone stronger, more independent, more capable than she'd ever imagined. "Thank you," she whispered to the universe, to God, to her children sleeping peacefully in the next room. "Thank you for showing me what I'm really made of." By the time the twins turned 7, Simone's Soulful Catering had become one of Atlanta's most sought-after catering companies. She now employed 15 people full-time, operated out of a converted warehouse space, and had a waiting list of clients that stretched months ahead. Mrs. Carter, the mayor's office, called again about the inaugural luncheon, her assistant manager, Denise, said as Simone reviewed the week's orders. "They want to confirm the menu. Tell them yes to everything except the shrimp appetizers. I want to do something different, maybe those bacon-wrapped scallops with a peach glaze." Simone looked up from her desk, which overlooked the bustling kitchen where her team was prepping for 3 events happening that weekend. She still couldn't quite believe this was her life. The scared, heartbroken woman in that hospital corridor felt like a different person entirely. That woman had been defined by who loved her. This woman was defined by what she could create. "Mama?" Amara burst through the office door, still in her school uniform but with paint streaks on her hands. "Look what I made in art class." She held up a drawing of a woman in an apron surrounded by pots and pans, with 2 children beside her. It's you cooking and me and Aiden helping. It's beautiful, baby girl. Simone pulled Amara onto her lap, breathing in the familiar scent of her daughter's hair, coconut oil and childhood sweetness. Where is your brother? He's reading to Mrs. Ruby in the break room. He found a book about elephants. At 7, the twins' personalities had crystallized even further. Amara was a natural performer, charming clients and employees alike with her endless questions and dramatic storytelling. Aiden remained the quieter observer, but his thoughtfulness often surprised adults with its depth. Can I help with the wedding cake tomorrow? Amara asked hopefully. I promise I won't drop anything. We'll see. But first, homework. Simone had made the decision to keep the children close to her business rather than relegating them to after-school programs. The warehouse had been designed with a homework area, complete with computers and educational games. Her employees had become extended family, looking out for Amara and Aiden with the protective love of aunts and uncles. That evening, as the family sat around their dinner table in the house Simone had bought 2 years earlier, Ruby watched her daughter with obvious pride. I got a call from that magazine today, Ruby said, passing the cornbread. Atlanta Business Journal wants to do a feature story on you. About what? Simone laughed. There are plenty of business owners more successful than me. About a single mother who built an empire while fighting cancer and raising twins. About a woman who turned the worst thing that ever happened to her into the best thing that ever happened to her community. Aiden looked up from carefully cutting his chicken into precise squares. What's an empire, Grandma Ruby? It's when you build something so big and important that it changes everything around it, Ruby explained. Like how Mama's business gives jobs to people and brings families together for celebrations. And makes really good food, Amara added seriously. Don't forget the good food part. Simone felt tears prick her eyes. Not sad tears this time, grateful tears. Her children were growing up seeing a woman who built instead of broke, who solved problems instead of creating them, who loved them enough to show them what was possible. That night, after the twins were asleep, Simone walked through her business space one more time before locking up. The industrial kitchen gleamed under the fluorescent lights, every surface spotless and ready for tomorrow's challenges. Order sheets hung in neat rows, each representing families celebrating life's milestones with food she would create. She thought about Devon sometimes, usually late at night like this when the work was done and the silence allowed unwanted memories to surface. Did he ever wonder what happened to her? Did he ever think about the children he'd walked away from? Doesn't matter, she said aloud to the empty kitchen. And for the first time she truly meant it. Devon's abandonment had been the catalyst for everything good in her life now. Without it, she never would have discovered her own strength, never would have built this business, never would have shown her children that they didn't need anyone else's approval to thrive. She was complete without him. They all were. As she turned off the lights and headed home, Simone couldn't have imagined that in just 3 years, all of that hard-won peace would be shattered by a chance encounter that would force her to confront the past she thought she'd left behind forever. The spring showcase at Rainbow Elementary was one of those community events that brought together families from across Atlanta's diverse neighborhoods. Simone had volunteered to coordinate the food for the evening, donating her services as she did every year for the twins' school. Mama, you're going to love my presentation, Amara said as they set up the buffet tables in the school cafeteria. I wrote about successful women in business and I picked you. You did not, Simone laughed, arranging the last of the warming trays. What about Oprah? I like your story better, Aiden said quietly, appearing beside them with a folded poster board. Amara interviewed you last week, remember? About how you started the business. Simone did remember. Amara had been adorably serious, asking about challenges and successes with the intensity of a professional journalist. It hadn't occurred to her that her daughter saw her story as inspiring. 5 minutes until families arrive, the principal announced over the intercom. Simone smoothed her dress, a deep purple wrap dress that Ruby had insisted brought out her eyes, and surveyed the spread. Everything looked perfect. Chicken and waffles, shrimp and grits, her famous mac and cheese, fresh fruit, and 3 different desserts. She'd outdone herself as usual. The cafeteria filled quickly with parents, grandparents, and siblings, the noise level rising as children found their families and began excitedly explaining their projects. Simone helped herself to a small plate and was looking for seats when she heard a familiar laugh behind her. Her body recognized it before her mind did. Every muscle tensed, her appetite vanishing instantly. She turned slowly, hoping she was wrong, but knowing in her heart she wasn't. Devon Brooks stood near the entrance, looking exactly like the successful man he'd always wanted to be. His suit was expensive, his haircut perfect, and beside him stood a beautiful woman with kind eyes, holding the hand of a little girl who couldn't have been more than 5. For a moment, Simone couldn't breathe. 10 years collapsed into nothing. She was back in that hospital corridor, heartbroken and abandoned, clutching test results and ultrasound photos while the man she loved walked away from their life. "Mama?" Aiden appeared at her elbow, his sensitive radar picking up her distress immediately. "Are you okay?" The sound of her son's voice snapped her back to the present. She was not that broken woman anymore. She was Simone Carter, successful businesswoman, devoted mother, cancer survivor. This was her space, her community, her children's school. "I'm fine, baby," she managed, forcing a smile. "Let's find seats." But it was too late. Devon had seen her. Their eyes met across the crowded cafeteria, and she watched his face go through a series of changes. Recognition, shock, something that might have been guilt. He said something to the woman beside him, then started walking in Simone's direction. "Oh no," Simone whispered. "Mom?" Amara had joined them now, clearly picking up on the tension. "What's wrong?" Before Simone could answer, Devon was standing in front of them. Up close, she could see the years had been kind to him. He looked successful, confident, happy, everything he'd been afraid he couldn't be if he'd stayed with her. "Simone," he said softly. Wow. You look incredible." She found her voice, drawing strength from her children's presence beside her. "Hello, Devon." His eyes moved to Amara and Aiden, and she watched realization dawn on his face. These were his children. The babies he'd run from, now beautiful, confident 7-year-olds who looked like perfect combinations of both their parents. "Are these?" He couldn't finish the question. "These are my children," Simone said firmly. "Amara and Aiden. Not your children, or our children. Her children." The distinction was deliberate and clear. Amara, never one to miss social cues, stepped closer to her mother. "Who is this, Mama?" "This is someone I used to know," Simone replied carefully. "Devon, this is my daughter Amara and my son Aiden." Devon looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. "They're beautiful," he whispered. "They look just like me," Simone finished, because that's what everyone always said. The twins had gotten her eyes, her smile, her stubborn chin. Any resemblance to their father was subtle enough that no one ever commented on it. "Simone, Devon started, but was interrupted by the woman who'd been standing with him. "Devon? Is everything all right?" She approached with obvious concern, the little girl still holding her hand. "Grace, this is Simone. An old friend." His voice was strained. "Simone, this is my fiancée, Grace Turner." Grace extended her hand with a warm smile, clearly unaware of the emotional bomb that had just exploded. "It's so nice to meet you. This is my daughter Emma. Are these your children? They're beautiful." "Thank you," Simone managed, shaking Grace's hand and forcing politeness she didn't feel. Grace seemed genuinely kind, which somehow made everything worse. "The twins go to school here," Grace continued. "Emma just started kindergarten. Maybe they've met." Amara, picking up on undercurrents she didn't understand but recognizing that this conversation was upsetting her mother, slipped her hand into Simone's. "Mama, didn't you want to find seats before my presentation?" "Yes, absolutely." Simone looked at Devon one last time, seeing the questions and regret written all over his face. "It was interesting to see you again, Devon." "Grace, it was lovely to meet you." She turned and walked away, her children flanking her like bodyguards, feeling Devon's stare burning into her back. Her hands were shaking as she found seats in the back of the cafeteria, as far from Devon's family as possible. "Mama," Aiden said quietly, "that man made you sad." "I'm not sad, baby. I'm just surprised. I haven't seen him in a very long time." "Since before we were born?" Amara asked with her usual directness. Simone looked at her daughter's intelligent face and made a decision. The twins were old enough for some version of the truth. "Yes, sweetheart. Since before you were born." As the presentations began and Amara took the stage to talk about successful businesswomen, specifically her mother, Simone felt a mix of emotions she couldn't untangle. Pride in her daughter's confidence, anger at Devon's sudden reappearance, and underneath it all, a fierce protectiveness of the life she'd built without him. He had no right to walk back into their lives now when all the hard work was done, when the twins were healthy and happy and complete without him. But as she watched her children's faces during Amara's presentation, she realized the encounter had raised questions they'd never asked before. And sooner or later she was going to have to answer them. The ride home from the school was unusually quiet. Simone gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, her mind racing while she tried to figure out how to handle the conversation she knew was coming. In the rearview mirror, she could see both twins staring out their windows, lost in thought. Amara broke the silence first as usual. "Mama, why don't we have a daddy?" The question hit Simone like a physical blow, even though she'd been expecting it. For 7 years, the twins had accepted their family structure without question. Ruby often joked that they had so much love between the 3 women raising them that they'd never seem to notice what was missing. "You have a family that loves you very much," Simone said carefully, pulling into their driveway. "Sometimes families look different than other families." "But who is our father?" Aiden asked quietly. "The man at school tonight. You knew him from before we were born." Simone turned off the car and sat in the silence for a moment, gathering her thoughts. These children deserved honesty. They were smart, observant, and clearly old enough to start putting pieces together. "Let's go inside and talk," she said finally. "This is a conversation for the kitchen table." Ruby took one look at their faces when they walked through the door and immediately put the kettle on for tea. She'd raised 5 children of her own and knew the signs of a family meeting that couldn't be avoided. "What happened at school?" she asked quietly while the twins washed their hands. "Devon was there," Simone whispered, "with his fiancée and her daughter. The twins saw him and now they're asking questions." Ruby's face hardened. "After all this time? What did he want?" "Nothing. I don't think he expected to see us. But Mama, the way he looked at them." Simone's voice trailed off. "He knows they're his. Course he knows. They've got his stubborn chin even if they look like you everywhere else." They settled around the kitchen table with tea for the adults and hot chocolate for the twins. Simone looked at her children's expectant faces and felt her heart breaking and mending at the same time. "You're right that the man at school tonight is connected to your story," she began. "His name is Devon and he is your biological father." Amara's eyes went wide. "Then why doesn't he live with us? Why have we never met him?" Simone chose her words carefully. "Sometimes when people find out they're going to be parents, they get scared. Your father got scared when he found out about you and made some choices that meant he couldn't be part of our family." "What kind of choices?" Aiden asked, his analytical mind working through the information. "He decided he wasn't ready to be a daddy. So he left and I raised you by myself with Grandma Ruby's help." The twins processed this information in their different ways. Amara's face showed a series of emotions: confusion, hurt, anger. Aiden seemed to be thinking deeply, his expression serious. "Was he scared because we were babies?" Amara asked. "Because babies are a lot of work?" "He was scared because he thought having a family would be too hard," Simone explained. "But you know what? It wasn't too hard. It was the best thing that ever happened to me." "Are we going to see him again?" Aiden asked. "Now that we live in the same place?" This was the question Simone had been dreading. "I don't know, baby. That would depend on a lot of things." "Does he want to see us?" Amara's voice was small, vulnerable in a way that made Simone want to drive straight to Devon's house and unleash 10 years of protective fury. "I don't know what he wants, sweetheart. Tonight was the first time I'd seen him since before you were born." Ruby leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "What I know is that you two are perfect exactly as you are. You're smart, kind, funny, and loved beyond measure. A man who couldn't see that from the beginning doesn't get to just show up now and change your lives." "But we're his children too," Aiden said logically. "Doesn't that mean something?" Simone felt tears prick her eyes. Her son's capacity for fairness and empathy constantly amazed her, even when it broke her heart. Being a parent is more than just biology, baby. It's about showing up every day through good times and hard times. It's about bedtime stories and doctor appointments and helping with homework and cheering at school programs. "Like you do," Amara said, understanding dawning in her eyes. "Like I do. Like Grandma Ruby does. Like all the people who love you do." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, everyone processing the new information. Finally, Amara spoke up. "Can I ask you something else, Mama?" "Of course. Are you sad that we met him tonight? You looked really upset." Simone reached across the table to take both of her children's hands. "I was surprised, not sad. And maybe a little worried about how it would affect you. I've spent 7 years making sure you never felt like anything was missing from your lives." "Nothing is missing," Aiden said firmly. "We have everything we need. We have the best mama in the world," Amara added. "I said so in my presentation." Simone felt the tears spill over then, but they were good tears. Her children were resilient, confident, and secure in their family's love. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. But as she tucked them into bed that night, answering more questions and offering reassurances. Simone couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Devon had seen his children now. He knew what he'd walked away from. And something in his eyes tonight told her he wasn't going to just disappear again. 3 days later, Simone was reviewing vendor contracts in her office when Denise knocked on her door with an expression of barely contained excitement. "Girl, you are not going to believe who just walked into our lobby asking for you." Simone's stomach dropped. "Please tell me it's not Devon Brooks. Looking like money and smelling like expensive cologne, asking if he can speak with you privately." Denise leaned against the doorframe. "Should I tell him you're in a meeting that's going to last until next Tuesday?" For a moment, Simone was tempted. She could avoid this conversation indefinitely, send him away, pretend the other night never happened. But she'd learned long ago that avoiding problems didn't make them disappear. "No, send him back. But leave my door open." 2 minutes later, Devon appeared in her doorway, looking as nervous as she'd ever seen him. He'd changed from his expensive suits into jeans and a button-down shirt, as if he was trying to appear less threatening. "Thank you for seeing me," he said, hovering uncertainly at the threshold. "You have 5 minutes, Simone replied, not standing up from her desk. "I have a business to run." He stepped into the office, his eyes taking in the awards on her walls, the photos of catered events, the obvious success she'd built. "Simone, this place is incredible. What you've accomplished." For minutes, Devon sat down in the chair across from her desk, running his hands through his hair. "I can't stop thinking about the other night. About Amara and Aiden. They're beautiful, smart, obviously well-raised. You've done an amazing job." "I know." Simone's voice was flat, giving him nothing. "I need you to know that I never meant for things to happen the way they did. I was young, scared, completely unprepared for the reality of loving someone through a crisis, of taking responsibility for your actions, of being a man instead of a boy." Simone's calm facade cracked slightly. "Which part were you unprepared for, Devon?" He flinched. "All of it. I was selfish and immature and I made the worst decision of my life." "No, you made the best decision of mine." Simone stood up now, moving to the window that overlooked her bustling kitchen. "Because if you had stayed, I never would have discovered who I really am. I never would have built this. My children never would have learned that they don't need anyone else's validation to be complete. They're my children too." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Simone turned to face him, and Devon took a step back at the fire in her eyes. "Are they? Where were you when I was throwing up from chemotherapy while trying to breastfeed 2 premature babies? Where were you during the sleepless nights, the doctor appointments, the first words, the first steps? Where were you when Aiden had pneumonia at 18 months or when Amara broke her arm learning to ride a bike?" "I didn't know." "You didn't want to know. There's a difference." Simone's voice was deadly quiet. "You made a choice, Devon. You chose yourself over us. You don't get to show up now and claim them because it's convenient." Devon was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. When he looked up, his eyes were filled with tears. "You're right. About everything. I was a coward and I lost the best thing that ever happened to me. But Simone, I'm not that man anymore. I've grown up, I've learned what really matters. I want to make this right." "Make what right?" "My children are happy, healthy, and loved. What exactly needs fixing?" "I want to know them. I want them to know me. I want to be part of their lives." "Why?" The question came out sharper than she intended. "Why now? Because you saw them and realized what you missed? Because your guilt finally caught up with you? Or because you think showing up 10 years later makes you some kind of hero? Because they deserve to know their father. They deserve a father who wanted them from the beginning. They deserve a father who fought for them, not one who ran away." Simone moved back to her desk, kneading the barrier between them. "They have everything they need, Devon. They don't need your guilt or your sudden epiphany. What about what I need?" The audacity of the question stunned her into silence for a moment. Then she laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "What you need? You're unbelievable. You had 10 years to figure out what you needed. You needed to grow up? You needed to learn what matters? You needed to become the man who could handle a family? Well, congratulations, you figured it out. But it's too late for us. It doesn't have to be." "Yes, it does." Simone's voice was final. "Because I will not let you disrupt their lives to make yourself feel better. I will not let you confuse them with promises you might not keep. And I will not let you think that showing up now gives you any claim to the children I raised alone." Devon stood up slowly, defeat written across his face. "What if I just want to know them? Nothing legal, nothing official. Just be around sometimes. Let them get to know me." So when you get bored again or scared again or decide fatherhood is harder than you thought, you can disappear again? Absolutely not. I wouldn't do that. You already did. They stared at each other across the desk, 10 years of hurt and anger and regret filling the space between them. Finally, Devon nodded slowly. I understand why you don't trust me. I understand why you hate me. But Simone, those kids are going to have questions. They're going to wonder about me whether you like it or not. Wouldn't it be better if I could answer those questions myself? Before Simone could respond, she heard familiar voices in the hallway. The twins were back from their after-school program, ready to do homework in the break room as they did every day. You need to leave, she said quickly. Now. But it was too late. Amara appeared in the doorway, stopping short when she saw Devon. Mama? Why is he here? Devon looked at his daughter, and Simone could see the moment he truly accepted that's what she was, with such longing that it almost broke her heart. Almost. He was just leaving, baby, Simone said firmly. Devon, goodbye. This time he listened. He walked past Amara with a quiet hello, that she didn't return, and Simone heard his footsteps retreating down the hallway. Mama, Amara said, watching him go. What did he want? Simone looked at her daughter's curious, intelligent face and realized that no matter how hard she tried to protect her children from this complication, it was already too late. The past had caught up with them, and now she had to figure out how to handle it without destroying the life she'd worked so hard to build. Over the next 2 weeks, Devon seemed to be everywhere. Not intrusively, not obviously, but always somehow present at the edges of their lives. He showed up at the grocery store where Simone shopped, claiming he'd moved to an apartment nearby. He attended a youth basketball game at the community center where Aiden played, sitting quietly in the back bleachers. He even appeared at the coffee shop where Simone met with clients, working on his laptop like he belonged there. This is harassment, Nadia declared during one of their weekly check-ins, watching Simone pace around her office. You should get a restraining order. On what grounds? He's not threatening me or the kids. He's just around. Simone slumped into her chair. It's like he's trying to prove something. Yeah, that he's a stalker. But the truth was more complicated than that. Devon wasn't being aggressive or demanding. If anything, he seemed to be trying to show that he could be trusted to respect boundaries while still being present. The few times they'd crossed paths, he'd been polite but distant, acknowledging the twins with a simple nod but not approaching them. It was driving Simone crazy. The kids are starting to notice, she confided to Ruby one evening after dinner. Amara asked me yesterday why the man from school keeps showing up places. What did you tell her? That I don't know. Because I don't. I have no idea what his endgame is. Ruby was quiet for a moment, washing dishes with the methodical precision of someone thinking deeply. Maybe his endgame is just being a father. It's too late for that. Is it? Simone stared at her mother in shock. Mama, you can't be serious. After everything he put us through? After everything you survived, Ruby corrected gently. Baby girl, I'm not saying you should forgive him or trust him or let him into your lives. I'm just saying those children are asking questions and they're going to keep asking questions. Maybe it's time to consider letting them get some answers. From him? The man who abandoned us. From the man who made a terrible mistake and is trying to figure out how to fix it. Ruby turned to face her daughter. Simone, I've watched you build an empire out of heartbreak. I've seen you turn pain into purpose. But honey, you can't protect those babies from every hurt in this world, and you can't make their decisions for them forever. They're 7 years old. They're 7 years old and smart as whips and starting to understand that their family story is different from other kids. How long before they start resenting you for keeping their father away from them? The question hit Simone like a slap. I'm not keeping him away. He's the one who left. And now he's trying to come back and you're the one saying no. Before Simone could respond, Aiden wandered into the kitchen, holding his math homework and looking troubled. Grandma Ruby, can I ask you something? Of course, baby. If someone does something really bad but then they say they're sorry and they try to fix it, should you give them another chance? Simone and Ruby exchanged glances. That depends on a lot of things, Ruby said carefully. What kind of bad thing? And how are they trying to fix it? I don't know. Aiden climbed onto a kitchen stool, swinging his legs. It's just something I've been thinking about. Like, what if someone hurt your feelings really bad but then they realized they were wrong? Well, Ruby said, settling beside him, forgiveness doesn't mean you have to trust someone again right away. But it might mean you give them a chance to show you they've changed. What if you're scared they'll hurt your feelings again? Simone felt her throat tighten. Her son was processing emotions and situations far too complex for his age, And it was all because of Devon's sudden reappearance. Then you go slow, Ruby said. You protect your heart but you don't close it completely. That night, Simone lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying her mother's words. Was she being protective or vindictive? Was she keeping the twins safe or keeping them from something they had a right to know? The answer came 2 days later when she picked up the kids from school and found Amara unusually quiet. Simone felt her carefully constructed walls wavering. You hurt me, Devon. You broke me in ways I didn't know I could be broken. And I survived it, I thrived because of it, but I will never let you do that to my children. I understand. What would it take for you to trust me enough to let me try? The question hung between them. Simone thought about her mother's words, about Aiden's questions about forgiveness, about Amara's confusion when other children asked about her father. Therapy, she said finally. Family therapy. All of us together with a professional who can help the kids navigate this and make sure their emotional well-being comes first. Devon nodded immediately. Done. And boundaries. Clear, firm boundaries that you don't cross. You don't get to show up at their school or my workplace or anywhere else without permission. You don't get to make promises you can't keep. And if at any point this becomes harmful to them, you walk away again. Agreed. And Grace needs to know everything. If you're serious about being in their lives, she needs to understand what that means. No secrets, no lies. I told her the whole story the night after the school event, Devon said quietly. She's the one who encouraged me to reach out to you. This surprised Simone. She did. Grace understands what it's like to raise a child alone. She also understands what it's like for a child to have questions about an absent parent. She thinks Emma would benefit from having siblings in her life, even part-time ones. Simone felt a flicker of something she couldn't identify. Oh, fear. What did you tell the twins that night? When Amara saw you at my office? Nothing. I said hello and left when you asked me to. But Simone, the way she looked at me. Devon's eyes filled with tears. She's curious. She wants to know who I am. I could see it in her face. She's 7. She's curious about everything. This was different. Simone knew he was right. Over the past 2 weeks, both twins had asked more questions about their father, about why some families looked different than others, about whether they would ever see him again. One session, she said finally. One therapy session with all of us together. If the therapist thinks it's healthy for the kids to pursue a relationship with you, we'll take it slow. Supervised visits, gradual introduction, constant check-ins about how they're feeling. And if the therapist thinks it's not healthy? Then you disappear from our lives forever and never contact us again. Devon extended his hand across the table. Deal. Simone stared at his outstretched hand for a long moment, then shook it briefly. This isn't about you, Devon. This isn't about giving you a second chance or helping you feel better about your choices. This is about my children having the information they need to understand their own story. I know. And if you hurt them, if you disappoint them or confuse them or damage the security I've spent 7 years building, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your life. I know that too. As Simone walked back to her car, she felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff. She'd spent 10 years building a life that was safe, predictable, and entirely under her control. Now she was about to introduce an element of chaos that could change everything. But as she thought about Amara's questions and Aiden's thoughtful observations about forgiveness, she realized she might not have a choice. Her children were growing up, and they deserved the chance to write their own relationships with their father, even if that terrified her. The question now was whether Devon Brooks was capable of being the father they deserved, or whether this was just another form of abandonment waiting to happen. Dr. Sarah Chen's office was warm and inviting, with soft lighting and comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. Simone sat with the twins on either side of her, their small hands clasped in hers, while Devon sat across from them, his nervous energy barely contained. It had taken 3 weeks to find the right therapist and schedule the appointment. 3 weeks during which the twins had asked daily when they would get to talk to someone about daddy stuff, as Amara had put it. I want everyone to know that this is a safe space, Dr. Chen began, her voice gentle but authoritative. We're here to listen to each other, share our feelings, and figure out what's best for this family moving forward. Are we a family? Aiden asked quietly, looking between his parents with his characteristic directness. That's one of the things we're here to explore, Dr. Chen replied. What does family mean to each of you? For the next hour they talked. Really talked in ways they never had before. The twins shared their confusion about having a father they'd never known, their curiosity about Devon, and their worry about hurting Simone's feelings by wanting to know him. Simone talked about her fear of disrupting the stability she'd built, her anger at Devon's abandonment, and her desire to protect her children from disappointment. Devon spoke about his regret, his recognition of what he'd lost, and his commitment to being present going forward, whatever that looked like. Amara, Aiden, Dr. Chin said as the session neared its end, if you could have any kind of relationship with your father, what would that look like? Amara spoke first. I want to know things about him. Like what his favorite food is and if he's good at math and if he thinks I'm funny. I want to know if we're alike, Aiden added. And I want him to know about us too. About school and our friends and Mama's business. And Simone, Dr. Chin turned to her, what would need to happen for you to feel comfortable allowing that kind of relationship? Consistency, Simone said immediately. If he's going to be in their lives, he has to really be in their lives. Not just when it's convenient or fun. And he has to understand that I'm their mother. All decisions about them go through me. Devon? I want to earn their trust and Simone's trust. I want to show up for them the way I should have from the beginning. I know it won't be easy and I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Dr. Chin nodded thoughtfully. I'd like to recommend a gradual approach. Short, supervised visits to start. Devon, you would spend time with the children at their home or in other familiar environments, with Simone present. As everyone becomes more comfortable, we can discuss longer visits and more independence. How long would this take? Simone asked. That depends on how everyone feels as we go. Some families need months, others need years. The important thing is that we move at the pace that's right for Amara and Aiden. 3 months later, Devon had become a regular but careful presence in their lives. Saturday afternoons at the park, help with homework at the kitchen table, attendance at school events. He brought Grace and Emma to meet the twins, and to everyone's surprise, the children connected immediately. It's weird having a big brother and sister, Emma confided to Simone one afternoon while the older kids played in the backyard. But good weird. I think Amara and Aiden feel the same way about having a little sister, Simone replied, watching Devon push Emma on the swing while the twins took turns showing off on the monkey bars. She still didn't trust him completely. Probably never would. But she trusted her children's resilience, and she trusted her own ability to protect them if needed. More importantly, she was beginning to see that her children were capable of loving more people without loving her any less. Their relationship with Devon didn't diminish their bond with her. It expanded their capacity for connection. Mama, Aiden said that evening as she tucked him into bed, I'm glad Devon is our dad. Yeah. Why's that? Because now I understand why I'm good at building things. And why Amara likes to argue so much. He grinned. We get that from him. And what do you get from me? Simone asked, kissing his forehead. Everything else, Aiden said simply. All the important stuff. 6 months after that first therapy session, Simone's catering business was featured in Atlanta magazine as one of the city's most successful woman-owned enterprises. The article included a photo of her with the twins and her extended team, all of them beaming with pride. Devon framed the article and hung it in his office, showing it to anyone who would look. Those are my children, he would say, his voice filled with wonder. And that's their incredible mother. It wasn't the family Simone had planned 10 years ago. It was messier, more complicated, full of careful negotiations and ongoing conversations about boundaries and feelings. But it was theirs. And on the Sunday afternoon when she watched Devon teach Aiden to change a tire while Amara directed the entire process with dramatic flair, Simone realized something unexpected. She was happy. Truly, completely happy in a way that had nothing to do with anyone else's presence or absence in her life. The scared, heartbroken woman in that hospital corridor had been transformed by abandonment into a woman who was complete all by herself. The successful businesswoman had been forged by necessity into someone who could build empires from ashes. And the protective mother had learned that sometimes the greatest gift you can give your children is the chance to write their own stories, even when those stories include people who once broke your heart. Mama, Amara called from the driveway, Devon says we should open a car repair business together. What do you think? I think you should stick to catering, Simone called back, laughing. We're much better at feeding people than fixing things. But we're pretty good at fixing things too, Aiden observed, looking meaningfully between his parents. Yes, Simone thought, watching her son's wise little face. They were pretty good at fixing things indeed.